Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities. We'll start with the dollar 10-year yield, work our way through a whole bunch of different precious metals and commodities that I follow. It gives you kind of a wide array or big picture view of what I think about the commodity sector and what I think may be coming. The reason I'm focusing on commodities and really only commodities alone, I do touch on the major indices, is that I think that's where the opportunities are at, given the market conditions. So let's dive in. I'll give you my opinions here. And we've got the dollar, the DXY behind me, definitely weakening today. We were down 0.59%. If you were to take kind of a longer term viewpoint on this, this could be a bounce off that resistance line and a head lower. But usually I like to see some weeks or months to make sure that this is in fact a bounce and we're going to head lower. We're not out of the woods yet. On a monthly candlestick, you can clearly see a big wick at the top. So if we close this month very weak, down, let's say, there is a likelihood that we're topping in the dollar and that we could be heading lower in the DXY. And what that means is a weaker DXY or weaker dollar in relationship to other currencies. It's usually good for precious metals and commodities. Stocks also like a weaker dollar, and it'll highly depend on what the 10-year yields do, 10-year and 30-year yields. But right now, this does look weak. We could be using this as a resistance line where we wick up on the top here and then head lower, like we have previously inside of this channel a couple of times before. The 10-year yield is rocketing higher. We're up 1.23%. It just seems like there is consistent selling pressure in bonds, raising those yields. And I still think that we've got higher yields ahead of us. That's surely what it looks like to me. With a weaker dollar and higher yields, it's going to cause that money to rotate into commodities. The money's leaving bonds, that's for sure. It's crossing across the DXY or dollar, and then it's going to go and be deployed into either stocks or commodities. Stocks are going to do okay with a falling dollar. That's kind of where they firm up a little bit, but the increasing 10-year yield and 30-year yield is still a headwind for stocks. And this looks really good for a continued move higher. We are definitely breaking to the upside of all this resistance, the long-term resistance line and this long-term resistance line going across. And we've been moving higher. We're finishing strong. It looks really good for a continued move higher. Bond prices will continue to head lower with increasing yields. Basically, people are selling their bonds. That's what we're seeing on the 20-year here. Bond prices lower, yields higher. Yields going higher impacts stocks in a negative way. It's a headwind. Doesn't mean that they'll always go down, but it's a headwind. And then looking at the TYX, the 30-year yield, it is also heading very much higher today, 1.65%, looking very strong for a move higher. And we are breaking out of this long-term downtrend line and moving higher. This is going to cause money to rotate in the system away from bonds into other assets. And hopefully that money's finding precious metals and commodities. So when looking at the CRB index, kind of a daily candlestick, we are heading higher. It's looking a little bit better. We could move around down here. Again, the short term is always the least reliable to look at. I kind of like the midterm, long term. But we're heading higher in commodities. We're heading higher in gold. We do have a little wick at the top. We're coming against some resistance. That white line is this. There. It's not resistance. It's actually support underneath us on a logarithmic time frame. So everything looks good to continue higher for gold. I think we're kind of above all of this resistance support lines that we need to be. The last one we've got going across here is about 1760 that we have to break. Silver getting the steroid injection today. It is on fire. Moving up 5%, looking very strong. I think this will continue. It finished quite strong, and hopefully we can get this momentum going. Platinum also finishing quite strong, up 3%. That didn't miss its Wheaties this morning. Maybe it had a little bit of whey protein. I don't know, but it's powerful today, and it's ending quite strong. So hopefully that momentum continues. I think it's highly linked to the dollar, and a weakening dollar is going to be a tailwind behind these precious metals. So that's something that you can watch and look for is weaker dollar. Usually, not every time, we see precious metals start to firm up, and a lot of our commodities should firm up because they are priced in dollars. Look at US dollar per ounce. Dollar goes down, these go up. That's what we're looking for. XAU to gold ratio still heading higher, meaning the mining companies are still outperforming gold itself. In the short term, we've got some good momentum. Long term, we still got to break the big long-term line. Let me get off logarithmic there. We still got to break that for complete happiness. But we do have a large bullish piercing on the monthly candlestick. Could be a bullish engulfing if we finish strong this month. And this could be a potential move higher moving on forward. So looking at SILJ, we are getting that bounce off of support, that white line. We've got support all underneath it. We are heading higher. A little bit of momentum loss today. That's why it's red. But it still looks good. GDX also heading higher today. That's still looking good. And these will look good with the declining dollar and an increasing precious metals prices. I think these are set up to outperform if we can keep these market conditions going. Remember, the short term, we got to really see the momentum turn in the dollar first. So we're not in the clear yet, but it's definitely looking better. Scrolling down to crude oil, again, crude oil priced in dollars. It's up a little bit today. And I'm still waiting to get through this fall time frame. Got to wait for that Strategic Petroleum Reserve releases to kind of end. And then I think we'll be game on. So we could still see some selling pressure in the short term, couple months or so. I know they want it to be lower for inflation figures, CPI figures for the elections, and obviously gas prices. So that's what we're going in there in the short term. Natural gas definitely coming up in the fall. We're seeing some strengthening here. Nice strong finish. That's going to materialize itself in some of the natural gas companies as natural gas strengthens here. We do see a trend. We've got kind of a low here, a higher low, a higher low, a higher low. So this is stepping on up. Higher lows, higher highs, and it's holding quite well. So I think that we're going to break to the upside at some point in the fall, winter. Exact timing is unknown, but it's sure looking good. We finished strong. Hopefully that momentum can continue us higher. So looking at XOP, yeah, you know me. It's higher today, but we were basically flat on the candlestick. The opening and closing price was flat. What I like to see is low opening price, big closing price, and a big fat candle. That's what I like seeing, our big fat tall candlesticks. We've got a small little guy, so it gapped up and went sideways throughout the day. The momentum is sideways. It means that we're open for either direction to occur. We don't have any large candlestick green army before us, so we could head lower if the sellers want to push us lower. And it highly depends on what they do with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. There's a lot of things that it depends on the direction of this in the very short term. Medium term, we're going higher, guys. That's what I think. Medium and long term, higher, measured in months and years. Looking at the energy service companies, looks like they shrugged everything off. They were higher today. I still think this is a great spot to be hanging out in. When we realize that we have shortages in oil and natural gas, we're going to be doing some drilling. And these guys are going to profit from that drilling. So I think that's a really good sector to be looking at right now. It is very well positioned. And if you guys want to know individual names and specific companies in any of these sectors and my opinions on it, the website below, finding-value.com, and a platinum membership, and you can see all of my opinions. You can see my portfolio and how I'm playing all this. Scrolling down to uranium. Uranium futures pricing up a little bit. 51.80 is what I'm seeing. There we are breaking out to the upside. That looks pretty solid. The Sprott Physical Uranium Trust getting a little bit of selling pressure today. There we are. We've been kind of trading back and forth, down, up, down, up, down, up. But again, we could see some selling pressure in the short term where we head down before heading higher. I wouldn't doubt that. And we're getting a little bit more selling pressure here. URNM. This is the ETF URNM. Again, I don't see a ton of selling pressure here yet. So this can go either way. It still looks good for a move higher if the buyers want to come in here and push it higher. The sellers are not dominating yet. We've got the green army with the big up candlesticks and then small pullbacks. We call this a bloody nose, bloody forehead with these small little guys. They're usually continuation patterns to the upside. So the buyers are still there. If they're there, show us where you're at. Show us that you're there and push this thing higher. We do see a little bit of contraction from the opening and closing prices on these, saying that the buyers are slowing down a little bit. So that's what I'm seeing there on URNM. CCJ, we're coming up to this resistance area. There's that resistance area that we've used before in multiple areas through here. That is going to act as resistance as we come up and try to break through it. We get a little bit of selling pressure, not much. So we're still game for a potential break if the buyers want to push us higher. We are losing a little bit of momentum. You can see that the candlestick sizes, the opening and closing prices, are contracting down a little bit. So we're coming up and we're slowing that momentum as we hit that resistance line right above us. It's right on top of us. So let's see what happens. We could very easily blow out of here if the buyers show up. The sellers haven't pushed this lower yet. So it's still game for whatever is next. The buyers are still open. The door's open here to run through it and really push it higher if they want to. TAN still basically moving sideways. I still think this looks excellent for a move higher. Still looks great. We've got our symmetry, left side, right side. Here's the middle. You flip this side over, we could very well come up much higher than where we are today with very little resistance. COPX, copper looking really good this month. We're putting in a fat bullish engulfing on the monthly candlestick if it closes where it does. And here we are heading higher. We got a little bit of resistance right where we're at, but we kind of, pushed our way through it today. And hopefully that momentum can continue us higher. It's still looking pretty good. The CRB to S&P 500, we've shot up out of this pattern. We've done a little bit of a pullback, and usually that's when we head higher at some point here. So it's still looking good for a move higher. The momentum is still upward. We've got rare earth metals getting a little bit of a slowdown. We definitely turned here last time and did a little bit of a pullback. We're coming back to that resistance, kind of a W-shaped pattern going on. We'll see if we can break to the upside. Everything looks good on a long-term perspective here for rare earth metals. And I think that we will eventually work our way higher, even though the short term, it is a little bit unknown. Lithium still working its way higher, still grinding higher. We're getting a little bit of a slowdown here in the short term, but nothing to worry about. We just have to see what this market's going to do here. There's a little bit of slowdown, but again, let's see if the buyers show up or if the sellers show up. But we do have a tailwind behind us with the overall markets, and I'm going to get into the overall markets here. The S&P 500 is rocketing higher, still looks good, looks solid for a continued move higher up to this resistance line. This resistance line, we have to break through it. Otherwise, we could see a reversal and then a move lower. Nasdaq's doing the same thing. We are heading higher up to that resistance line. That resistance line is this guy coming through here. Are we going to hit our head and turn or break back above it? That's what we have to find out. So I'm going to say higher until we hit that resistance line, then we'll have to figure out where we're going to go from there. We had a weaker dollar today. Again, weaker dollar. EEM loves that. So we were higher on EEM. I like emerging markets in this general vicinity down here. I think it's a good pickup. And this looks really good for a continued move higher, so long that the dollar weakens. So I think that potential's in front of us. XHB looking good. Small update today. It's still holding above its support line. Everything's still intact. I would claim victory if you can close above 67, but over $68. If we can close and hold above 68 on a monthly close, I'm going to call victory in an uptrend there. But we're not there yet. Lumber shooting on higher. That looks like it wants to continue higher. That looks really good. You know, I thought we were in a housing bubble. I wouldn't necessarily see this this pattern forming where we're breaking it to the upside. There's your pattern, guys. Kind of a falling wedge that we're breaking to the upside. It's looking good to move higher. I think that we're going to head on higher here in the short term, which means that lumber price is going to increase and maybe new home sales rebound. We'll find out when the data is released this month. Nickel moving higher, up 7.27%, getting a nice little pop higher today. Palladium also heading higher. That looks good for a move on up. Looks really good. Cocoa futures also looking good. Heading higher. I think we're going to move on higher with cocoa futures. Weaker dollar, the price of these are going to move up. Wheat was down a little bit, but it's a bloody nose and a continuation pattern higher. We've got soybeans, which is just rocketing higher today, breaking out of the resistance lines. That looks really good. Corn also heading higher. That looks pretty solid, in my opinion, for a continued move higher, probably up till, I would say, 7,500. And then copper looking good, finishing strong. I think we're going to move higher. If we break the 375 level and close above it, we are now in a new uptrend. So copper stocks are probably A-OK to start looking at. And if we can break through here, we're probably going to see a big move in them. Looking at Moo getting a little bit of selling pressure today. Again, still looks all right. We're just bouncing around sideways. Some of the fertilizer companies had a little bit of selling pressure today. Again, I'm holding on, and I'm not too afraid. I'm just going to hold on and ride it. Looking at aluminum. Aluminum is firming on up. Looks like it wants to move higher. We're right on support, and I think we'll be bottoming here at some point. Give it some time. We also got the Baltic Dry Index. Baltic Dry Index is moving higher today, so that's another positive sign. I think if China can get through their energy crisis, I think that's why they're doing lockdowns, is because they don't have the energy to do anything. If they can get through their energy crisis that they're going through and their lockdowns come off, I think that we'll see increased energy demand and increased shipping for Baltic Dry Index. We'll see a whole bunch of positive things. But right now, definitely what your eyes should be on is a weaker dollar. Look at those 10-year, 30-year yields. Those yields continue to go up. Dollar continues to go down. I think that's going to be a good tailwind for our commodity investments. So everything looks good. I'd say, opportunity-wise, precious metals are looking really good. It looks like they're bottoming and starting to come out of that bottoming pattern. I think that copper's looking pretty good. If I were to, look back at copper, I still think oil could see a little bit of weakness maybe left in it. We do have some buying pressure, but it's going to highly depend on what goes on with the dollar and what the SPR releases are. And if they cut back on the SPR releases and we get a weaker dollar, I think oil is going higher. If we get a dollar that's stronger and they cut back on the SPR, I think that we could see higher prices in oil. And I think if we see a flood of the SPR and a stronger dollar, we could see lower oil prices in the short term. So that's kind of the setup there. There are opportunities in graphite and some of these other companies and sectors that I am seeing that are breaking down trend lines that I think are potential good investments. If you're on the website, you know what those investments are. I've talked about them before, some of my favorite graphite companies. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about and you want to know, the description link below, the Platinum membership, is the membership you want. Sign up and you can get access to all of those companies that I talk about. All right, guys, that's what I've got for today. Hopefully you're doing all right in the markets. Give me a thumb up for the content, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.